you'll have a list of 1,000 people that could be customers for you.
Mhm.
So we're running ads of their best posts, and we're basically pushing that out to a wider demographic. You genuinely have nearly burnt a lead. You got to wait a good maybe half a year or a year, and then try to nurture that back in.
Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Clicks to Customers. This is John. I'm the CEO of StubGroup, a digital advertising agency that helps businesses dominate Google Ads and make money online. And today I'm excited to be joined by the co-founder of the media engine, Aman Ghataura. Aman, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. Well, today we're going to be talking a lot about LinkedIn, and I'm very interested to learn a lot myself from you today, Aman, and I'm sure those listening and watching will as well. So to kick things off, could you just explain what do you do with your company, the Media Engine?
Awesome. Yeah. So on a very high level, we help businesses get leads through LinkedIn. So that's like super high level. And the mechanism or the way that we do that is we do awesome ghostwriting. So we write on behalf of the CEO or the founder or like the VP's profile. We create very authoritative content and content that attracts people or their ideal clients to, view, engage, go down that funnel. And then we have a bunch of conversion mechanisms that are designed to take people that are looking at the content to then getting them through into booking a call with you. So we're end to end. We care about attracting attention on the top funnel and bringing it all the way down to bottom funnel so that our clients get qualified book calls into their calendar.
Awesome. What got you started in this space? What led to the creation of the Media Engine?
Yeah, that's a great question. I have been in agency land for like the last 4 or 5 years now. So working at an agency as second to CEO. And whilst I was there, I was trying out loads of acquisition channels. Everything from Facebook ads, SEO, Google ads, referrals, cold email, partnerships, like you name it, I think I went through all of them. And I think I came across a point where I'm like, whoa, LinkedIn is good. Like LinkedIn is hot. And this was about 2.5 years ago. I'm like, this is easy. LinkedIn was a really easy place to get impressions, qualified impressions. And I got bullish on the fact that LinkedIn has so much firmographic data and it's so easy to find qualified prospects. So what I mean by that is you can search on LinkedIn for your ideal customer incredibly easy. Within, let's say, like 6 clicks, you'll have a list of 1,000 people that could be customers for you. And there is no other platform that can do that. So pair that data, that ability to access whoever you want to access, with the ability to write content with lots of impressions. It's almost a no-brainer for a B2B business not to be on LinkedIn. And so I personally saw it as this is a huge arbitrage opportunity. And I feel like as marketers, we're always looking for arbitrage opportunities, and LinkedIn is probably the biggest one right now.
That makes perfect sense. So when you're working on LinkedIn, for anybody watching, listening who's not super familiar with LinkedIn, you've obviously got the ability to post content on LinkedIn from personal pages, from company pages. They also have an advertising component where you can pay ad spend to get messages in front of people. Do you do much on the paid ad side of things, or is it mostly the organic content side of things?
Yeah. So for most of our clients, it's organic. For the clients that want to ramp up and double down on the impression share, we manage that ad spend for them. And what we do on the ad spend is we're specifically quote unquote boosting or running thought leader ads is the specific word for it. So we're running ads of their best posts that performed on LinkedIn organically, and we're basically pushing that out to a wider demographic. We also obviously edit the posts a little bit before they go out into paid because we need to make sure they're hitting the right awareness levels. But typically, yeah, we do a bit of paid ads as well once we see traction on organic.
Got it. So find what works well organically and then put some fuel onto that fire and take that
Exactly
out. So you kind of mentioned this a bit already, but what would you say sets LinkedIn as a channel apart from all the different other social media channels that are out there?
Yeah, so let's compare LinkedIn to Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. That's like the 5 main channels, let's say. Out of all those 5, the very first lever is that LinkedIn has the best B2B data. So again, you can click within 6 clicks, get to access anyone you want to. You can look for CEOs, CMOs, director of marketing, at any type of software company or any type of small, medium business that you would like to get to. So that's like level 1 of what differentiates LinkedIn. The second level is easy to grab impressions. So right now, these other platforms, let's say Twitter has been on an impression decline, I'd say over the last year, maybe 2 years. Ever since Elon Musk took over, algo's been a bit funky, which means it's harder for people to do lead gen or just do any sort of business activity on there. Compare it to YouTube. YouTube is a great place for impressions, but it's incredibly hard to create long form content that hits well on YouTube. So YouTube is a big time investment, but it's a great platform, and we are also doing some YouTube. Instagram, again, it's more video and more photography style and better for B2C. So that's where like Instagram fits in that spectrum. Did I say all of them? I said LinkedIn, Instagram, YouTube, Twitter. I think that's them all. And Facebook, I kind of put Facebook into the size of Instagram, to be honest. So like on like a quadrant, and if the quadrant was, on the x-axis B2C to B2B, like LinkedIn is so far to the right and everything else is kind of like more to the left. And on the, let's say, y-axis of like ability to grow and get impressions relatively easy, like LinkedIn's also very high up there. So LinkedIn's like top right of that quadrant. And the only one closest to it in terms of B2B access, in my opinion, is YouTube, because it has an SEO style feature there. And then after that, Facebook for B2B is a lot more difficult, but it's possible, but it's a lot more difficult.
That makes a lot of sense. And obviously with LinkedIn, like you said, you've got people literally telling you about their business experience and where they work and what their job title is. It's like it doesn't really get better than that.
Exactly. I think every B2B company has LinkedIn at some part of their marketing journey or sales journey. Like it's, whether it's just the salesperson looking at the prospect's LinkedIn profile from a end touchpoint sales perspective, or right at the beginning when it's like, oh, marketing is exporting a list to enrich, to maybe send out to run retargeting ads to, or marketing is exporting this for like a TAM analysis or doing some market research. Like the whole spectrum is anyone can touch that on LinkedIn, which is quite impressive.
What would you say are, like, when you think of the criteria of what makes a business a really good fit to advertise or to market themselves through LinkedIn? Are there specific, I know you mentioned you work with coaches, tips of different types. What are the top best types of businesses or professionals that LinkedIn really clicks for in your experience?
Yeah, so we've worked on 40, 50 LinkedIn accounts over the last 2 years. So we have so much data on like what works and what doesn't work. The overarching theme on LinkedIn, the overarching theme, broadly speaking, is if you help other people make money, you do well on LinkedIn. So people scroll LinkedIn because they're kind of looking to make money in some form. They're looking to scrape data. They're looking to find clients. They're looking to, hire and grow. All of those functions are around business growth. And so if you're able to help other people grow, you generally do quite well on LinkedIn. So business coaches that help agencies grow do really well on LinkedIn. Business coaches that help accountants grow do really well on LinkedIn because they're facilitating that growth. Lead generation agencies do incredibly well on LinkedIn because people always want more meetings, always want more sales calls. Data providers, so SaaS data tools, ultimately are selling a form of revenue, but it's just in the form of data or leads. So again, super valuable. So all these guys do really well. And then that's like one big cohort. Second form of cohort that do really well are like the niches, like super, super niche. We're talking about, we are a accountant for construction companies, like incredibly niche. Like how do you find other construction companies to sell accountancy to? So you need to get really deep in the data. And when you go deep in the niches, you realize that those prospects haven't been hit up. Like they're just not interesting to the majority of LinkedIn. And so when you become very tailored to a very small niche, you can do really well. Especially if you are running a small medium business. Maybe you want to local in your local area. You run some Google search ads, you get some traffic, you get some sales, you do a little bit of Facebook maybe posting. Layer that on with like connecting with every decision maker and posting a little bit on LinkedIn, you're going to start closing more deals faster, guaranteed.
Awesome. So let's pick that niche you talked about, accountants for construction companies. I assume you're going to be writing content, creating content that would be useful to a construction company who needs accounting help. Does it also include, are you proactively sending connection requests and messages to people, or is it more you put the content and have them come to you?
So in niches where like you're slightly more boring, unfortunately, is what I say. Like if you're like talking about like accountancy is kind of a boring topic to speak about, and it's also a topic that people only want to really hear about when they're in a certain season of their journey or their business. So let's say 9% of the time, talking about accountancy will get you no traction whatsoever. So in those situations, like these type of niche businesses, it doesn't make sense to do too much content. Like you can do a bit of content, some case study posting. Don't expect a huge number of impressions. Don't expect a huge number of likes. But instead, just connect with all the right people. And so that when they accept your connection request, they see that you're legitimate, that you're posting, and that conversion will come over time. And this is especially true for like local style, quote unquote, boring businesses, where those businesses typically always struggle for top funnel. Like lawyers, accountants, trying to think what other quote unquote boring niches are, like surveyors, like these, like you're gonna really struggle to like capture attention unless someone wants to buy. Hence why Google search ads are probably working best for you right now. And I'm just saying use LinkedIn to like touch on that channel from the back end and get the decision maker.
Totally. And reach people who maybe aren't searching right now, or reach people without the cost per clicks that you have to pay sometimes on the Google side, or combine and be in as many places as possible, which is ideal. That makes a lot of sense. So when you mentioned you've worked with a lot of different businesses doing marketing. Do you find that every client you work on, you have to tailor a completely unique strategy for them? Or is it a lot of, hey, there's these 10 things that are kind of true across the board, and then we just tweak them based upon a specific niche or business?
Yeah, so on a very high level, we believe there are only 11 post types that exist on LinkedIn. There are only 11 types of posts that you can do on like a very strategic level. And that means like stuff from like a how I post, or a how to post, or a X best things listicle. There are a bunch of these ideas that exist in market. So one, we stick to our framework, but that framework, how it's executed, can be very broad. And what I mean by that is if I have a client come in and they don't have any brand, let's say like this, they don't have a base to start from, we have to post more top funnel content that is generally more story driven. And the reason for that is we need to create some traction first before we go and harvest. On the other side, if you are a business coach and you've been posting a bit on LinkedIn with your previous business and you clearly have some expertise, you can pretty much start harvesting quite quickly. And what I mean by harvesting is writing very bottom funnel content. So let's say 5 out of our 11 post types are quite bottom funnel. And we can use those post types to build authority quite quickly in market, and then basically try to convert anyone that's already in the network. So the strategy is tailored depending on where you are in that branding and growth journey. How many people know you already? But otherwise it speaks to the higher level framework of like, these are the resonant ways you speak on LinkedIn. So we need to stick to those, otherwise you don't get impressions or you don't get your post distributed well enough.
Gotcha. That makes sense. So tailored to where they're at in their journey, what have they been doing so far? Are they brand new? Do they already have some establishments? And then going on from there.
Exactly.
I'm going to guess that one of the biggest concerns or objections that leads give to you has to do with how are you going to replicate my voice? How are you going to write content from me? You're smiling, so I think I hit the nail on the head there. What do you say to that? How do you handle that concern? Yeah,
it's also a very fair concern. We typically get that concern from this very specific cohort of the market. And that cohort of the market is the market that isn't doing LinkedIn to get business results. They're doing LinkedIn to get attention. And when you're doing it to get attention, your goal is like, I want impressions, which are like a lot more fluffier. And then you start really caring about your tone of voice. The cohort of the market that want business results are comfortable with the tone of voice being 80% to 90% correct. We're never, and I don't think any agency can ever get a tone of voice 100% correct. Only because there's like such subtle things like, oh, I don't do my bullet points this way. Like you'll get some of that feedback. You're like, oh, I was never going to get that.
Right.
So we tend to deal with the market that prefer the results or like are more results orientated. We then, when we're writing posts, we are doing monthly guided interviews with our clients. So what that means is we have a series of questions that we formulate based on what we're seeing on LinkedIn in their market. So say, for example, we are working with a email marketing agency, and I know one of the resonant ideas in market, because we've done our research, is deliverability. I'll ask a lot of questions around, hey, how's your deliverability? How are you tracking opens? What are you doing to get out of promotions tab? Give me a case study of how you got some out of promotions tab and how that impacted revenue. So super specific questions I'm asking. And when they answer those questions, they are answering in their tone of voice, like literally how they speak. And so typically what we do is when we take that transcript, we actually have their tone of voice nailed without doing any work. And then it's a function of when we write this post is to add in their tidbits and how they speak into that post. And that typically can get us from 0 to like 85% without trying too hard. So getting tone of voice right isn't hard if we do our steps correctly of like transcribing and pushing the data through.
That makes sense. Are you able to leverage LLMs at all, like ChatGPT or Claude, to help say, hey, here's a bunch of text or a transcript from the person. What is their tone of voice, and help us write in that tone of voice? Does that come up at all?
We typically use it more for, hey, help me query this long transcript and find the data points that I need to find. So, for example, prompts like a very easy prompt to pull out in an interview or a podcast is, when did the person say any numbers? And when you do that, you get like this really like, there's like the value, like there's this data and there's depth in like those 6 things that they mentioned.
That's cool.
Then you can do prompts like, what are the overall themes? And then you get like 4 or 5 themes out, like, cool, great. There's some post ideas here. And so we use it as more like a knowledge base or a querying tool to help work through like a long 60-minute interview, as opposed to using it for like, how does this person speak? But I might try it out. It sounds interesting.
That makes sense. Cool. So what would you say are some of the most common mistakes that you see businesses making right now when they're doing their own or trying to do their own LinkedIn marketing?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think the number one mistake is even before they've posted a single piece of comment. They've just positioned incorrectly. They've written like, CEO of company posting about AI, follow me for like, it's just such self-serving positioning, in my opinion. And what that means is all their positioning is designed to make them feel big and good and make them look bigger than they are. But on LinkedIn, everyone's doing that, so you just look the same. And the first very problem is like no one is fixing that positioning. So we have a way to fix positioning that makes you attractive to prospects, that communicates what you can deliver. We have a bunch of like ideas around how to do that. And then depending on the client and their growth stage and what they're trying to achieve, we adjust to those templates or adjust to those models. Like that's step one, so it's like the positioning is normally most correct. Secondly is like connections. So they tend to like to send connection requests with like 4 follow-ups on LinkedIn. And like that's like a huge no-no. The reason why they're doing it typically is because they've done cold email, and you can typically do 3 or 4 follow-ups and it's kind of fine. But on LinkedIn, you have to remember that you have messaging history. Like you will see every message you've sent to this person back and forth over their whole, like that's permanent information. On cold email, that no one's gonna remember that cold email that you sent. It's just moved on. You can spam that person again. It's not gonna matter that much. And so when you send out 4 messages in a row that are like super like aggressively trying to book in a meeting, you genuinely have nearly burnt a lead.
Yeah.
Like you got to wait a good maybe half a year or a year and then try to nurture that back in very subtly, if not at all. So that can really kill a business. So I would always suggest just go blank connection requests. Don't try to sell anything. Let them come inbound. This is a long-term game. So there's profile, there's connections, and then finally, like, content. Most people do content badly, but it's not their fault. Like, they haven't had the time to work out how to do content well, and it's a skill in itself, and it takes a long time to learn, which is why we exist. So I don't blame people for getting it wrong. I'm just like, it could be better.
Yeah.
But I don't blame you for getting it wrong. Like, you were never going to get it right within like half a year anyway. So that's just part of growing up and learning.
Absolutely. Yeah, and having this, having the time, having the experience there. I mean, I can say
Exactly.
same thing on the Google Ads side of things. I can't really blame a business that they're not amazing at Google Ads because they're trying to run a business. They don't have the luxury of what we do, which is, figuring out all day, every day across a bunch of agencies. So that makes a lot of sense. I can also, from a personal standpoint, I can 100% attest to what you're saying there, because I get hit up all the time with LinkedIn messages, and generally when they have a big sales pitch in the initial message, I don't even accept, because I know they're just trying to sell me something. It doesn't look interesting. Every now and then it does look interesting, but that's probably once in 100. I can think of a couple of people, like, okay, that's actually really interesting, but it was something I was already looking for, something I cared about. I was like, oh, okay,
Yeah.
they meet the need, beautiful. But I'm much more likely to accept blank invites where there's at least a chance that there's going to be some value there, and not just boilerplate message that comes through. So that rings true to just how I use LinkedIn from a consumer perspective as well. In terms of when you're reaching out, I'm curious, just a tactical question. Are you, when you do get into conversation with people after you've connected with them, is the first call to action to schedule a call generally, or is it more of a funnel with, hey, here's a lead magnet, that type of thing? How does that usually work?
Yeah, so we have a bunch of funnels that run. I don't really ever try to book from cold as like a highlight. If I connect with someone cold, I will just leave it there. I won't try to send a message afterwards. The way I book in calls, generally speaking, is probably through two mechanisms. So mechanism one is through a lead magnet. So we would give away a valuable resource and say comment and like to access. You get a bunch of people commenting, liking, sending you connection requests. Post us 100 to 500 likes and comments. So you get a bunch of inbound connections as well. And you start to see people that you had connected with engaging. So it's like, cool, they have a pain here, and they've opted for this lead magnet. And so when I distribute the lead magnet, I have an open-ended question at the end of it. It's like, hey, are you trying to hint at a pain point and make a very easy question? Like, are you struggling to get leads this month? Are you creating content right now? Or how's content creation going? Whatever that question is, I'm just trying to create a conversation. And those that opt in and respond are wanting to have a conversation too. And so then we'll have a bit of back and forth in the DMs, and they will eventually, if relevant and qualified, book into a call. So it's like a very slow nurture way. The second way is you can work through your connection list if you want to harvest, and you can basically message people a really simple question, to the qualified people at least, that's like, hey, are you, let's say you're running a paid search agency. Hey, how's ads this quarter running for you? I'm not trying to sell you. There is a bit of foreshadowing that if I'm a paid ads agency and I said hey, how's paid ads running for you, and you say no, it's not good, you're gonna want to get on a call. Right. That's kind of obvious. But if you say it's not good, then you should expect that, and that's a sales call coming through. And if you don't reply, you're like, cool, I don't want to be pitched. Cool, I won't follow up with you. And I think that's personally okay. You can do that every so often, provided you don't do it aggressively, and that's okay. So those are the two main mechanisms. And the third mechanism is people just come inbound. People see your content and just hey, can you help out with this thing? I've seen you do it. And I prefer those, to be honest, a lot more. Yeah. We mostly book calls just through pure inbound. They see my content, they go to the landing page, they're booking a call. Maybe 30 to 50% I have to set in the DMs, or our team does. And they're very naturally assisted. They are kind of wanting to chat to me anyway. They're just trying to feed it around a little bit. they want to be chased, is my impression a little bit.
Got it. I like it. So keeping it very natural, very organic, very truly, how can we help you? How can we provide value? Getting conversations going, like,
Correct.
Few humans
Correct.
will talk, and then taking things from there.
Exactly. I think the key takeaway here is that they buy on their own time, not on yours. Like if the pain's not there, they don't care. And it's like so obvious. Like that's why cold email has its like everyone sits around like the 1% book meeting rate, or whatever, like the 1% reply rate or whatever that number is, all because that's just that much. That's the number of people in market for the problem. Like that's why it's not a huge number. So it's the same thing with any sort of outreach here. You just got to wait for people to come into market, as opposed to hoping 5 times more are in market.
Good things come to those who wait, as they say. So putting yourself out there and then having the patience to let that cycle in as people feel those pain points. That makes a lot of sense.
Exactly.
So are there any challenges that come to mind? Could be maybe a specific client that was challenging, or a technical issue in LinkedIn, or whatever. Does anything come to mind that you've been able to kind of work through and overcome that you could share?
Yeah, there's loads of challenges, which is interesting. It's a really broad question. I'll go with the challenge that is most useful for people listening in. And the most obvious challenge is I'm creating content. I'm kind of getting some engagement, but nothing's happening. Or I'm getting like one call every month. And when I see that challenge specifically, it's almost always the same problem. And it's the problem of profile positioning and content level or targeting. So in these scenarios, the profile is never positioned to explain what they do in a way that differentiates them. So for example, let's imagine yourself, like you could have a profile that says, well, I'll look at your profile now, it's a CEO at StubGroup. And let's say, I don't know if you're creating content, let me have a look. Occasionally, like you cross-link some stuff. But like, let's say you're creating content about like how to run Google Ads. Really valuable content. Like no one cares, unfortunately, because you're not offering them any value. Like if your profile was, and if you can deliver this, like I'll 2x your Google Ads marketing efficiency ratio in the next 90 days, like wow, now you're sexy. Now I want to talk to you. There's something here. So almost always it's like they're not offering an outcome, and they're not even calling out a specific business type. So if you, for example, specifically work with really good e-commerce brands, like call that out early in your headlines that people are attracted by it. So when you send a connection request, they understand like there's something I can get out from this guy. That's one piece that like tends to always go wrong. And so as soon as we fix that positioning, and say they have been building brand just the wrong way for a little bit of time, they can very easily book in a few calls almost immediately, which is really weird. Like they can almost immediately see like, hey, 2 or 3 book calls come in, purely because their position got focused, they got cleaned up, and people that were in market, in their network, already seeing their content, now get it, calls book in, and we're like, cool, we're validated. Like there is clear validation that this is something that people want. The second thing that's happening is they are not creating their content to speak to outcomes. And what that means is, if the outcome that you want to deliver for your business, for your coaching service is I help you run better teams. I help you hire better. If your content's not really calling that out in the hook, everything is incongruent. Nothing makes sense anymore. Like if you help people build teams, all your posts should be around helping people build teams in some form. But typically people's posts are like, hey, here's how to, it's harder to think of a bad example now. Now my brain's like on it. Here's how to send payroll. I'm like, what are you talking about payroll for? I want you to like hire someone better. And it's like, it's because they're speaking to themselves. Like this is a pain point they have, but not the pain point their customers have. So they end up like speaking to wrong audiences. So what they're doing wrong is they're not positioned well, and they're not speaking to the right audience consistently. And that all creates incongruency. And so in the reader's mind, they can't make out what you do. Or if they can, it took them like 5 seconds longer than they should have. And so when those two things get fixed on accounts, most of the time they're able to book in a couple calls straight away, just because everything just seems congruent and it just flows a little bit better. So that's the biggest challenge that we always like solve, typically speaking. And we solve that for clients that are done for you, like we manage everything for them. And then we have some done with you programs where we help them, they don't have the budget for like a full out, service plan, but we go like, hold on, we can like at least get you going in the right direction, and we can coach you along the way to get there. Mm-hmm. And those guys see results very quick with this methodology.
Well, that's a perfect segue. I'm gonna thank you so much for your time today as we kind of wrap up here. I know I learned a lot. I'm gonna be going checking out my LinkedIn profile after this conversation. Nice. For those who are watching, listening to this, and who want to learn more about what it'd be like to work with you, where's the best place for them to find you?
The best place is to find us on LinkedIn. So my profile, Aman Ghataura, or my co-founder's profile, Paolo Poli. You can DM us on LinkedIn and we can chat to you. Or you can go to our website, themediaengine.co, and you can book in a call there or have a look around. And I assume you'll put the links down below so I don't have to spell it out for you.
Absolutely. Yep, we'll get all those links there. Fantastic. Well, I'm going to really appreciate the time. Great getting to chat with you today. For those watching, listening, thanks so much for your time as well. Definitely recommend you go check out the Media Engine and see how they can help grow your business. Until next time, signing off.